Walter Blake's teeth rattled in his skull as the boot connected with his ribs for the third time, the metallic taste of blood filling his mouth as he curled into himself on the damp ground. Through his one good eye, the other already swelling, shut. He watched the three men looming over him, their faces distorted by the harsh glare of pickup truck headlights behind them. "You should have minded your own business, old man," growled the largest of the three, his knuckles raw and bleeding. The gold signet ring on his right hand glinted as he flexed his fingers. "Memorial Avenue is getting developed whether you like it or not." Walter coughed, crimson spattering the concrete of his driveway. At 72, his body wasn't built to absorb this kind of punishment anymore. 2 cracked ribs at least, maybe worse. The pain radiated through his chest with each labored breath. "The mayor sends his regards," said another man, his voice eerily polite as he dropped a torn petition on Walter's chest. "Next time you collect signatures to block progress, remember tonight." The third man, who had remained silent until now, crouched beside Walter. His breath smelled of whiskey and cigarettes as he leaned in close. "Know what they're planning for your precious memorial? Luxury condos with a little plaque saying, 'Once dedicated to veterans' in fine print. Progress, old-timer. Can't stop. It." Walter's good eye fixed on the man's face, memorizing every detail despite the pain. This one was new, not one of the usual enforcers Mayor Harrington employed for his dirty work. Younger, with a military-style haircut and a faded tattoo partially visible beneath his collar. "You served," Walter managed to say, his voice barely audible. Something flickered in the younger man's eyes, uncertainty, perhaps shame, before hardening again. "Yeah, well, this is the real world, and in the real world, guys like you get left behind." The three men climbed into their truck, tires squealing as they pulled away. Walter remained motionless until their taillights disappeared around the corner. Then, with excruciating effort, he dragged himself toward his front door, each movement sending fresh waves of agony through his battered frame. Inside, he ignored the trail of blood he left across the hardwood floor. The landline phone was his target, not his cell phone lying shattered in the driveway. With trembling fingers, he dialed a number he hadn't used in 23 years. A cool, professional voice answered on the second ring. "Federal verification." Walter's voice came out as a rasp. "This is Blake. Badge 00476. Initiate Falcon Protocol." A pause. "Verification phrase?" "The sun sets twice on borrowed time. Stand by for confirmation, Agent Blake." Walter slumped against the wall, a bitter smile twisting his bloodied lips. 3 decades in this town and no one, not the mayor who waved to him at Memorial Day services, not the police chief who called him Pops, not even his neighbors who knew him only as the old veteran who raised the flag each morning, had any idea who he really was. "Protocol confirmed, Agent Blake. Assets mobilizing. Medical team dispatched to your location. ETA 17 minutes. "Make it faster," Walter murmured, sliding down the wall as darkness crowded the edges of his vision. "I've waited long enough." His gaze drifted to the small desk in the corner of his living room. Beneath its innocent surface was a hidden compartment containing 28 years of meticulous notes, recorded conversations, and photographic evidence. A lifetime of patience, culminating in tonight's catalyst. Walter had known they would come for him eventually. The only surprise was that it had taken this long. Mayor Robert Harrington was enjoying his second scotch of the evening when his phone vibrated. The text message contained only 4 words. "Check the local forum." Frowning, he opened the town's unofficial Facebook group. At the top of the feed was a video already accumulating hundreds of shares and comments. The thumbnail showed 3 men standing over someone on the ground. "Jesus Christ," he whispered, quickly closing the app and dialing a number. Police Chief Dennis Pearson answered immediately. "I've seen it." "How the hell did this get out?" Harrington hissed. "You promised me Keegan and his boys would be discreet." "Working on it," Pearson replied tersely. "But we've got bigger problems. FBI just rolled into town. 4 black Suburbans at the hospital." "FBI, what the fuck for? It's just an assault case." "That's the thing," Pearson said, his voice dropping. "They're not here about the assault. They're here for Blake, like he's one of them." The mayor's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on his kitchen floor. What are you talking about? I don't know yet, but the agent in charge just ordered me to secure Blake's residence as a federal crime scene. They're treating his house like it belongs to a fellow agent. That's impossible. Blake's lived here 30 years. He's just a retired Army vet with a hard-on for that stupid Memorial Road. Yeah? Then why is half of my department locked out of their computer systems? And why is a team of federal agents combing through our evidence room right now? Harrington felt his skin grow cold. Get over here, now. He ended the call, then immediately dialed another number. After 4 rings, a gruff voice answered. Do you have any idea what time it is? We have a situation, Harrington said, his voice tight with controlled panic. Blake is FBI. A long pause. That's not possible. We vetted him years ago. Well, your vetting missed something big. Now I've got federal agents swarming my town and a video online showing Keegan and his crew beating an old man who apparently has friends in high places. Calm down, Robert. Nothing connects you directly to tonight. Stick to the development plan narrative. I'll make some calls, see what's really going on. And if Blake has been collecting evidence all these years? What then? The voice hardened. Then we'll handle it like we handled Alan Price. Harrington hung up, his hands trembling as he poured another scotch. Outside his window, he could see flashing lights in the distance, moving toward the center of town. In 30 years of running Clearwater, he'd never felt so exposed. The local news led with the story the next morning. Beloved veteran assaulted, FBI investigates. The reporter stood in front of Clearwater Community Hospital, where Walter Blake had been admitted with multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and a concussion. Sources tell us that Mr. Blake, a fixture in our community for decades, may have been targeted due to his opposition to the controversial Memorial Avenue development project. The FBI has taken over the investigation, raising questions about potential corruption in local government. In his hospital room, Walter watched the broadcast with detached interest. The morphine dulled the pain, but sharpened his focus on what needed to be done. A woman in a charcoal pantsuit stood by his bed, her ID badge identifying her as Special Agent Diana Mercer. They didn't waste any time connecting the dots, she observed, nodding toward the television. Small towns run on gossip, Walter replied. Always have. Your cover's blown after all these years. You sure about this, Blake? Walter shifted his gaze to the window, where he could see 2 agents standing guard. I retired because I was tired, Diana, not because I was finished. The Bureau can handle this quietly. Give you a new identity, relocate you. I'm not running. Walter's voice hardened. Not after what they did to Alan Price. Mercer's expression softened slightly. That was 15 years ago, Walter. And they built luxury condos over his name on that memorial. The same people who called him a hero at his funeral. Walter turned to face her fully. I want the Falcon Protocol executed to completion. No shortcuts. You realize what that means? We'll turn this town inside out. Good. Walter closed his eyes. Start with the police department evidence room, box 347. Mercer raised an eyebrow. You've been busy in retirement. I wasn't retired, Walter corrected her. I was waiting. After she left, Walter turned back to the window. He could see a portion of downtown Clearwater from his 4th-floor room, the courthouse, City Hall, and a slice of Memorial Avenue. He'd chosen this town carefully after his official retirement, identifying it as a nexus of small-time corruption with potential for bigger connections. What had begun as a simple mission to monitor had evolved over time, especially after he'd befriended Alan Price, another veteran whose questions about missing funds for a memorial project had cost him his life. Walter had been the one to find the wreckage of Alan's car that night 15 years ago, the vehicle crushed at the bottom of Sawyer's Ravine. The official report cited alcohol as a factor, despite Alan's well-known sobriety. Walter knew better. He'd seen the same pattern in dozens of towns across America during his years with the Bureau's Internal Corruption Task Force. But patience was Walter's greatest weapon. While the town assumed he was just another retiree, he had meticulously documented every suspicious deal, every questionable zoning change, every mysterious disappearance of public funds. Box 347 contained only a fraction of his evidence, the piece Mercer would need to secure the initial warrants. The rest would follow in carefully timed revelations, each designed to prevent the kind of legal maneuvering that had sheltered corrupt officials in the past. Walter pressed the morphine button, allowing himself a small dose of relief. Everything was in motion now. He'd spent half his life fighting domestic enemies who hid behind badges, gavels, and city council seats. Men who wrapped themselves in the flag while desecrating everything it stood for Alan Price, for the town that Clearwater should have been, for the oath he'd taken decades ago and never relinquished. Chief Pearson slammed his fist on the mayor's desk. "They've suspended me. Administrative leave pending investigation." Mayor Harrington looked haggard, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled after a sleepless night. "Join the club. The town council's calling for my resignation after that." Video went viral. "This is about more than some beatdown," Pearson said, lowering his voice despite being inside the mayor's office. "They found box 347. The color drained from Harrington's face. "That's not possible. You said—" "I know what I said," Pearson snapped. "Someone must have talked. Maybe Keegan, trying to save his own skin. Or maybe the old man wasn't who we thought he was." Harrington swiveled his computer monitor to show a news article from 1997. FBI Counterterrorism Unit thwarts domestic extremist plot. In the grainy photograph, a younger Walter Blake stood in the background, his face partially obscured but recognizable. "Jesus," Pearson whispered. "He's bureau?" "Was. Looks like he retired after some operation went south in the late 90s. Harrington scrolled down. "Right around when he moved here." "So what? He's been watching us? For decades?" A sharp knock interrupted them. Without waiting for a response, 2 FBI agents entered, accompanied by the city attorney. "Robert Harrington, Dennis Pearson," announced the lead agent. "We have warrants to search your homes, vehicles, and personal electronic devices in connection with an ongoing federal investigation into corruption, racketeering, and civil rights violations." The city attorney stepped forward, ashen-faced. "Gentlemen, I strongly advise you to comply and contact your personal attorneys immediately. The FBI has already seized the city's financial records and communication servers." As the agents led them out, Pearson muttered under his breath, "What the hell did you do, Blake?" Across town in a modest ranch house on the outskirts of Clearwater, Michael Keegan paced nervously in his living room. The 2 men sitting on his couch watched him with growing impatience. "I didn't know he was FBI," Keegan protested. "How the hell was I supposed to know that? He was just some old man collecting signatures." "Yet you couldn't handle one old man without creating a spectacle," said the older of the 2 visitors, his voice calm but edged with menace. "Now the feds are crawling all over town." "That wasn't my fault. Someone else posted that video." "Your face is clearly visible, Mr. Keegan, as is your distinctive truck." The man stood, straightening his expensive suit. "The organization has arranged transportation for you. Canada first, then overseas. You'll be contacted with details." "Wait, what? I'm not leaving my family." "Your family will be provided for," the second man interjected, opening a briefcase to reveal stacks of cash. "Your choice is simple. Disappear or face federal charges. The mayor and chief cannot protect you anymore." Keegan stopped pacing, his face crumpling. "How long will I be gone?" "That depends on how quickly the situation resolves." The older man checked his watch. "Pack 1 bag, you have 30 minutes. After they left, Keegan slumped onto his couch, head in his hands. He'd been a football star in high school, then a moderately successful contractor before Mayor Harrington had approached him with special projects that paid cash. It started small, intimidating local business owners who opposed certain developments, persuading elderly residents to sell property below market value. The money was good, and Keegan had convinced himself it was just business. But as he stared at the cell phone footage of himself kicking a defenseless old man, the self-deception crumbled. What would his kids think if they saw this? His wife? With sudden resolve, Keegan picked up his phone and dialed the number on the FBI tip line that had been plastered across local news since morning. The hospital television played continuous coverage, of what locals now called the Clearwater earthquake. FBI agents and forensic accountants had descended on the town like locusts, seizing documents from City Hall, the police department, and the offices of Clearwater Development Partners. Walter watched from his hospital bed as the news anchor reported, "In a stunning development, 17 current and former city officials have been detained for questioning. Sources tell us federal agents are investigating a pattern of corruption dating back at least 15 years, connected to multiple development projects that may have misappropriated federal funds intended for veterans' services." A knock at the door drew Walter's attention. A young nurse entered, checking his vitals with practiced efficiency. "You've become quite the celebrity, Mr. Blake," she said, adjusting his IV. "Not what I intended," he replied. "My dad served with Alan Price," she said quietly. "He always said something wasn't right about how that memorial project fell apart." Walter studied her face more carefully. "Sarah Finley, Mike's daughter?" She nodded. "He said to tell you it's about time." Walter smiled faintly. Mike always was. Impatient. After she left, Walter reached for the burner phone Agent Mercer had provided. He dialed a number. "It's me. Is everything in place for Phase 2? The voice on the other end confirmed. "Good. Release it all tomorrow morning." The next day's developments made the previous ones seem like a gentle tremor before the earthquake. Local news stations interrupted regular programming as federal agents arrested the mayor, police chief, and 3 members of the city council. But the true bombshell came from an anonymous data dump to major news outlets. Financial records, emails, and surveillance photos revealed a conspiracy stretching back decades. Kickbacks, intimidation, evidence tampering, and the systematic looting of funds meant for veterans' memorials and support services. At the center of it all was Clearwater Development Partners and its silent majority owner, Mayor Harrington himself. Most shocking were the documents concerning Alan Price Memorial Avenue. 15 years earlier, the decorated local veteran had uncovered evidence of the conspiracy. Police reports, never filed, revealed that Price's fatal car accident occurred hours after he confronted the mayor with proof of wrongdoing. By evening, the story had gone national. Cable news showed footage of the mayor and police chief being led into federal court in handcuffs. Political figures from both parties condemned the corruption. The governor announced a state investigation to run parallel to the federal case. In his hospital room, Walter watched it all unfold with the calm detachment of a chess master whose endgame was unfolding exactly as planned. When Agent Mercer visited, she found him sitting up reviewing documents. "Impressive work," she said, taking a seat beside his bed. "The Bureau's forensic accountants say you built a stronger case from your living room than most field offices could with full resources." Walter shrugged, wincing slightly at the pain in his ribs. "I had time and motivation." "About that," Mercer leaned forward. "We found some irregularities in the evidence, things that weren't where they should be, records that appeared at exactly the right moment." "Are you accusing me of something, Agent?" "No. I'm observing that someone with intimate knowledge of Bureau procedures seems to have been directing things for years." She studied his face. "The Falcon Protocol was decommissioned in 2005, Walter. It doesn't exist anymore, but somehow everyone responded when you activated it." Walter met her gaze evenly. "Perhaps some protocols never truly die, they just go dormant until needed, like certain agents." Mercer stood to leave. "The director sends his regards, by the way. Says your methods are unorthodox but effective." After she left, Walter turned to the window overlooking the town where he'd spent 3 decades in plain sight, watching and waiting. 3 floors below, journalists clustered at the hospital entrance, hoping for a glimpse of the unassuming veteran who had brought down a corruption empire. His phone buzzed with a text from another burner number. "It's done. Found at Canadian border. Being brought in now." Walter allowed himself a small smile. Keegan, the man whose boot had cracked his ribs, would be the first to turn state's evidence. They always broke, these small-town enforcers, when faced with federal charges. One by one they would implicate each other. reaching higher up the chain until the entire network was exposed. Justice for Alan Price, and for all the others who had been silenced. 2 months later, Walter sat on the porch of his modest home, watching his grandson Max run through the sprinkler in the front yard. His body was healing slowly. Some breaks never would fully mend at his age, but that was of little consequence now. The headlines had gradually moved on to other scandals, though the Clearwater corruption case continued to expand, reaching into state-level politics and uncovering connections to organized crime. Walter's role had been minimized in official statements. The Bureau preferred to keep its legends in the shadows. Max, exhausted from play, climbed the steps and collapsed in the chair beside his grandfather. "Dad says you're famous now," the 10-year-old said, studying Walter's face with unrestrained curiosity. "He says you're a hero like in the movies." Walter chuckled softly. "Your dad has an active imagination. But you were in the FBI, right? Fighting bad guys? Something like that?" Max's expression grew serious. "How come you never told us? And how come you never talked about the war like Grandpa Wilson does?" Walter's gaze drifted to the American flag flying from the porch column, the flag he still raised every morning despite his injuries. For a moment he saw not his manicured lawn but blood-soaked hills in a distant country, then sterile bureau offices, then Alan Price's face the last time they spoke. "You asked me once why I never talked about the war," Walter said finally, reaching over to ruffle the boy's damp hair. "That's because the real war started after it, and I'm still fighting."